Siva Vaidhyanathan. Shiva, you've thought deeply about Google, not only as a for-profit company, but also as a symbol of our digital age. What have you learned about why Google is so powerful in its ideological form, in the kind of company it is, and the kind of message it gives the world?
Sure. Well, first of all, I think we can all agree that the people who work at Google are generally brilliant and committed. And what they've
Committed
built,
to what?
committed to their work, right? And
Well,
committed to the
so.
vision. But in a way that the company has been able to clearly leverage and make, look, there are a lot of people at General Motors or Volvo who are committed to their work, but it doesn't always show through so obviously. If the entire system is gummed up, right? There are lots of examples where you can have individuals committed to work and the system doesn't quite work. But Google is young enough and still lean enough that its quality is shown through. So when we worship it, it's not without reason, but it is with worry, I think, with concern. So one of the reasons that Google has been able to achieve all that it has and play such a central role in our lives is that it actually indulges our weaknesses and our some of our least attractive.
What are our
habits.
weaknesses?
So, our need for speed, our need for convenience, our need for an answer without complexity, right? Simplicity over complexity,
So Nicholas Carr was right. Google is making us stupid.
No, I don't think I wouldn't go there. I wouldn't take the next step. But by feeding those habits, which of course we're all susceptible to, in an increasingly complicated world in which we live, we sometimes eschew the complicated analysis, the complicated source, the nuance of a question. That doesn't necessarily make us stupid collectively or individually, but it does make us lazy, I think, or at least encourage our laziest habits. And I think there's a very big difference between laziness and stupidity. In fact, I think Google has enhanced our ability to manage the world in some fundamental ways, and in general, the internet has, right? So Carr, of course, conflates Google and the internet in his argument, and I think that's unfortunate, because Google does things that are not exactly the same as the entire ecological information barrage that he's much more concerned about. He's concerned about an environment of distraction as opposed to the role that any particular information source or information-seeking habit might have on us. I have a number of issues with Nick Carr's argument. Fundamentally, I think it's too soon to tell whether any of his premises are valid, whether any of his hypotheses have enough evidence to support. But I understand where he's coming from. I'm just not convinced. I don't think he takes me to the end. But I think I'm talking about a somewhat different problem, and that is the fact that we are susceptible to junk food, right? We are susceptible to eating ice cream over spinach, and too often Google gives us the ice cream over the spinach. And so I'm being a dour Puritan in this book, actually.
You don't look like one.
Well, I don't feel like one. But in my voice, and this is a big risk whenever one writes a book to be a dour Puritan, and because nobody wants to be scolded, and unfortunately I think I have an underlying tone of scolding going on here. But I do hope that I can provoke people to at least think differently about Google. I don't want anyone to boycott Google. I don't necessarily want massive intervention from the state in this industry. I do want to ask the right questions that might result in some modest and appropriate intervention in some areas down the line. And I'm not even willing to prescribe those specifically at this point. But I do think we need to clear out some myths. The myth that there is anything close to a free market on the internet, on the web, in search, that's a huge myth. Secondly, the notion that a company can simultaneously serve its interests and our interests in all areas for all time, that's a huge myth. Once we throw those two myths away, we can have a grown-up conversation about what sort of information ecosystem would serve us best.